Room 229. It was 3:10 a.m. No one told me I'd have to work this late as a hotel manager. If I'd known that, I probably would have looked for another job. Unfortunately for me, a maintenance worker quit yesterday, so until we could get another hired, I was forced to fix things here and there. It's best for everyone. Make sure that we can continue to get new guests in and keep the money flowing. I had to do the work later at night after a day's duties. It was the only time I had time. I sighed when I finally got to the room needing repairs. 229. When I entered, I went straight to the bathroom. Something about the tub being clogged and unable to drain. It was empty when I set my tools down, staring at the shining white porcelain. Probably just draining slowly. Common in hotels due to the mass amounts of grime and body hair that ended up down the drains. I climbed into the tub and crouched down, popping the drain cover free. My flashlight revealed a large dark mass down the drain that seemed to be clogging it. I grabbed a drain stick and started to shove it in, spinning it around, when some water dripped onto my head from above. I tried to ignore the water as I continued. I could hear a soft clicking inside the drain. I froze when I noticed red sliding down the white surface below me. I touched the back of my neck and wiped away some of the liquid. As I stared at my hand, I realized it was blood. I looked up just as the shower turned on, a torrent of scalding blood pouring from the head and spraying into my mouth. I tried to stand to get out, but slipped on the wet porcelain, falling backward and hitting my head. I was reeling and unable to focus as the tub filled with blood faster than should have been possible. It was spilling over the edges by the time I could try to lift myself out. I could see my body trying to break through the water surface, the tension pushing upward, but refusing to break. I felt exhausted, splashing blood across the walls. Before I could catch my breath, long, thin legs started to rise from the blood near the drain, brown and hairy. They moved to the edge of the tub, and I could see a segmented body emerge, blood dripping from its matted hair. I screamed as 12 eyes stared at me, a chittering sound as it went to lunge forward. The next thing I heard was a concerned voice next to me. You okay?" I opened my eyes and glanced around. A seemingly ordinary bathroom. A guest next to me. I stood and exited quickly, locking the door behind the guest. I said nothing as I left, and I went home. I decided I needed to avoid late nights. Room 247. It was 2:11 a.m., late night for a housekeeper, but I needed the overtime. It was strange for a hotel to encourage cleaning this late. Usually, it was after guests left in the morning before new arrivals. The second floor cleaning was always overtime at night, though. No one seemed to want to clean the rooms, only gave me sideways glances. Avoided my gaze when I asked why. Everything was going great, though. I was in the last room that I had to clean for the night, room 247. I tried to flick on the light, but no response, just the rapid clicking back and forth as I strummed the switch. Perfect. I left the door open as I pushed my cart inside. I worked my way backward as I cleaned. As I got toward the bed, I noticed something seemed off. There was a large lump of rolled up sheet sitting on top of the bed. It was shaped like a body. I tried to laugh it off, my chuckles echoing through the room. Not the first time visitors had played this prank. It was annoying having to unwrap the sheets, though. It's not like you could wash them in a bundle. I moved towards the side of the bed and started to pull apart the sheets when I froze. I could see red stains underneath the sheet, and it felt hot. As soon as I touched the sheet, it started to pulsate, muffled sounds coming from inside. I tried not to scream as I stared at the writhing mess. This was the most elaborate prank that someone had pulled yet. I didn't have anyone I could call. Security would get annoyed over nothing. I just needed to pull it apart and finish my night. My hand was shaking as it moved towards the sheet, and I gently pulled back the cover on the face. I screamed aloud this time. It was my own face looking back at me. It opened its mouth and started to laugh loudly, maggots swimming in holes in the tongue and cheeks, garbling the sound as it echoed in my ears. I slowly backed toward the wall as the sheet continued to unravel, slowly exposing my rotten and decayed body, still wearing my housekeeper uniform. I tried to scream for help as it climbed off the bed. Suddenly, the door slammed shut, and I was in pitch-black darkness. It was utterly silent, save for my heavy breathing. I paused briefly before I slowly reached out in front of me and felt nothing, only the cool edge of the bed. I was able to crawl across the floor and reach the door, swinging it open as I crept outside. The lights were on when I glanced back, and I could see the bed perfectly made. I shut the door and went home early. I got an angry call from the hotel manager the next day about not finishing my job correctly. No more overtime for me. Room 256. It was 1:12 a.m., 3 hours after a long day of business meetings. Hotels were convenient for this. Traveling for work, working all day, and having a place just to lay down and rest your head before your next hard day of pushing for success. I wasn't the biggest fan of traveling, and I didn't really like spending time in hotel rooms. It's for that reason that I spent most of my time at the bar in the hotel lobby, at least until they closed and kicked me out. I'll admit I could get a bit tipsy, maybe cause some issues, sometimes even spend nights with people that I shouldn't have. I invited them into my room to share my bed. This hotel seemed different, though. Even as late as it was, the bar never closed. I was close to far gone at this point when she approached me. Tall, long red hair, beautiful, at least to me. She compelled me immediately. Her words were demure, alluring, and convincing. She said she only wanted to spend the night with me. Even in my inebriated state, it was one of the best nights of my life, and I realized the following day that I would never forget our time together. She fell asleep in my arms, cozying up close to me as I slowly drifted into sleep. The first time I didn't mind being in a hotel room. The thing that stood out most to me the following day was the smell. Metallic taste across my dry tongue as rotting meat invaded my nose. The bed felt hot and wet, like I'd sweat all the liquor out of my system onto the sheets. I glanced over to my side and started to scream. The woman in red, bright crimson lipstick smeared across her thin lips. She had decayed overnight and was now a rotting corpse, skin flaked and peeled, that had tarnished my body. I jumped out of bed and ran into the bathroom, trying to clean the fetid skin, hair, and muscle that had soiled my chest. The smell wouldn't go away. Even though I scrubbed until my skin was red and raw. The mix of meat and lavender soap wafted into my nostrils, and I immediately vomited onto the countertop. My head was reeling as I tried to understand what the hell happened. I had to call the cops. Crazy as this story was, there was no way I could hide a body. I moved to exit the bathroom and saw that the bed was now empty. Her remains were no longer there. A sweat-stained red dress, the only reminder of her existence. The bed was completely soaked and stank worse than garbage. The cost to fix the room was enormous. I decided not to drink anymore on business trips. I was right, though. I never forgot her. Room 238. It was 12:01 a.m., another long night shift as hotel security. The only call so far was a complaint about some male guest screaming his head off in room 238. I had backup as I arrived at the room, standard policy, to investigate in pairs of two, in case of violence, but more to prevent any claims that would increase liability. It sounded like someone in immense pain, wailing, that pierced deep into your ears. It made me feel sick, and I nearly vomited. The other guard started banging on the door. "Hey, everybody okay?" No response. The screaming only continued. He pulled up his radio and gestured for me to wait. Yeah, front desk. Can you check who's supposed to be in room 238 for me? Yeah, the noise complaint." He grew pale as the response clicked through. "No one's checked out that room all week." My mind raced through all the unpleasant reasons someone would be in an unrented room. What's worse is that the screams still hadn't stopped, a piercing echo through the otherwise empty hallway. I gestured toward him, trying to hand over a master key. He shoved back and loudly whined. "I am not looking in there. You go first." Some debate went on, before finally he coaxed me into entering. As soon as the door opened, the room went silent. It was dark, but it was seemingly undisturbed as I turned on the light switch. It took only a couple of minutes to realize the room was empty, peaceful, and no one was hiding anywhere. I still felt sick as we locked up behind us, the hallway devoid of sound. The rest of the night went off quietly, but I felt on edge as I got off shift. I decided afterward to investigate the hotel's history, hoping to find nothing. Ghost stories scared me, and I would likely have to switch jobs. The hotel kept records of every news story related to the property in the basement. After a couple of hours, I found an article from 20 years ago. A man had hung himself and screamed as he died. My skin started to crawl as I read the name. Howard Devaney. I stood up and rubbed my eyes. I couldn't believe what I was reading. That was my name, with a smiling picture of me in the article in my security uniform. I opened my eyes when I started to struggle to breathe. I was hanging from a support beam in the room by my neck. I was screaming as I clawed at the rope, trying to pull myself up to stop my suffocation. I was too weak, and I felt the life being choked from me. As I began to fade into darkness, I heard a voice speaking. "I am not looking in there. You go first." The click of the door was the last thing I heard as I disappeared, ceasing to exist. Just a temporary shade. A memory